Welcome back to History Teller YT, the place where the past comes alive. Today, we're diving into one of the greatest empires the ancient world has ever known, the Persian Empire, from the visionary leadership of Cyrus the Great to the monumental reigns of Darius and Xerxes, and the enduring legacy of the Achaemenids. From the legendary battles of Marathon, Thermopylae, and Salamis, to the brilliant administrative reforms, cultural achievements, and trade networks that kept this massive empire together, Persia wasn't just about conquest, it was about strategy, diplomacy, and the vision to govern a world of diverse peoples. In this series, you'll discover how Persia rose to power, faced the mighty Greek city-states, handled revolts in Asia Minor, built architectural marvels, and left a legacy that influenced empires for centuries. So, sit back, make yourself comfortable, and get ready to travel through time as we unfold the epic story of the Persian Empire, right here on History Teller YT. The story of the Persian Empire begins in the 6th century BCE, a time when small tribes roamed the Iranian plateau. Among these tribes was the Achaemenid dynasty, led by a visionary leader named Cyrus II, later known as Cyrus the Great. Born around 600 BCE, Cyrus united the Persian tribes under his leadership through a combination of strategic diplomacy, military skill, and a keen understanding of human nature. Unlike other rulers of his time who relied solely on brute force, Cyrus was known for his clever alliances and tolerance toward conquered peoples, earning their loyalty rather than inciting constant rebellion. Cyrus's first major success was the overthrow of the Median Empire, his powerful northern neighbor. By 550 BCE, he had conquered the Medes and proclaimed himself king, marking the official beginning of the Achaemenid Empire. But Cyrus did not stop there. He envisioned an empire far larger than any Persia had ever known. His ambition was tempered with wisdom. He respected the customs, religions, and governance systems of those he conquered. This approach became a cornerstone of Persian administration and allowed the empire to expand rapidly without the constant strife that plagued other empires. The legend of Cyrus's leadership extended beyond his military prowess. The famous Cyrus cylinder, discovered in Babylon, portrays him as a liberator who allowed displaced peoples to return to their homelands and worship their gods freely. This policy was revolutionary for its time and reflected Cyrus's broader strategy, empire building through inclusion and respect. His reign established the foundations of what would become one of the largest empires in human history, setting the stage for successors like Darius I and Xerxes I, who would later test Persia's might against the rising power of the Greek city-states. After consolidating Persia and Media under his rule, Cyrus turned his attention to Babylonia, Lydia, and beyond. In 539 BCE, he famously conquered Babylon without significant bloodshed, a feat that cemented his reputation as a tactful yet formidable ruler. The Babylonians, impressed by Cyrus's respect for their traditions and religion, welcomed him as a liberator. This conquest was more than just a military victory. It showcased the Persian method of governance, integration rather than annihilation. Cyrus's empire was remarkable not only for its size but also for its cultural diversity. He ruled over people speaking various languages, practicing different religions, and adhering to different customs. Instead of enforcing Persian culture, he allowed local traditions to flourish while ensuring loyalty to the central authority. This method of administration created an empire that was stable, prosperous, and far-reaching, stretching from the Indus River in the east to the Aegean Sea in the west. One of the most significant impacts of Cyrus's rule was his approach to religion and governance. By respecting local cults and traditions, he reduced rebellion and built an empire that was more cohesive than many of its contemporaries. Moreover, his model inspired future rulers, including Darius I, who would refine these administrative strategies to manage an empire of unprecedented scale. Cyrus's leadership was thus not just about conquest, it was about building a lasting legacy that combined military strength with diplomatic wisdom and cultural respect. Cyrus's empire was underpinned by a military that was highly organized, disciplined, and adaptable. The Persian army was a combination of cavalry, infantry, and archers drawn from across the empire. Unlike Greek city-states, where armies were primarily citizen soldiers, Persia leveraged its diverse populations to assemble specialized units, each bringing unique skills to the battlefield. For example, the Medes and Persians provided cavalry, while Egyptians and Babylonians contributed skilled archers and engineers. This allowed Cyrus to conduct campaigns across diverse terrains, from the deserts of Mesopotamia to the mountains of Anatolia, with remarkable efficiency. Alongside his military genius, Cyrus introduced innovative administrative systems to manage his sprawling empire. He divided the empire into provinces known as satrapies, each overseen by a governor or satrap. These satraps were responsible for collecting taxes, maintaining law and order, and supplying troops to the central government when required. Communication across the empire was facilitated by an early postal system, with relay stations and messengers ensuring that orders from the king reached even the most distant provinces. This combination of military prowess and administrative sophistication allowed Cyrus to expand Persian territory rapidly without overextending his resources. Cyrus's reign ended around 530 BCE, but the foundations he laid would define the Persian Empire for generations. His successors, particularly Cambyses II and Darius I, inherited an empire already remarkable for its size, diversity, and stability. Cyrus the Great was not merely a conqueror, he was a visionary architect of one of the ancient world's greatest empires, whose influence on governance, military organization, and cultural integration would echo for centuries. His legacy would set the stage for the famous clashes with the Greek city-states and the monumental events of the Persian-Greek Wars. After the death of Cyrus the Great in 530 BCE, the Persian Empire passed to his son, Cambyses II, a ruler tasked with the enormous challenge of upholding and expanding the legacy of his father. Unlike Cyrus, who had ruled with a combination of diplomacy and tactical brilliance, Cambyses' reign leaned more heavily on military conquest and assertive control. He inherited a sprawling empire that stretched from the Indus Valley to the Aegean, with diverse populations and cultures, each requiring careful management. Cambyses was ambitious and driven, understanding that to secure his rule and demonstrate his power, he needed to pursue new conquests. His eyes were set on Egypt, a land known for its wealth, agricultural abundance, and strategic position connecting Africa and the Near East. Egypt had been under the rule of the 26th dynasty, led by Pharaoh Psamtik III, who maintained a strong military presence along the Nile. Cambyses understood that subduing Egypt would not only increase Persian prestige but also expand trade networks and enhance the empire's resources. To prepare for this campaign, Cambyses reorganized his army to face the challenges of desert warfare, Nile River crossings, and heavily fortified cities. His forces combined Persian cavalry, infantry, and archers with auxiliaries drawn from recently conquered territories. He emphasized mobility and coordination, lessons inherited from his father's campaigns. Additionally, Cambyses' approach to governance mirrored his father's in some aspects. He aimed to integrate the local population into the empire, though his methods in Egypt would sometimes provoke resentment and controversy. In 525 BCE, Cambyses launched a full-scale invasion of Egypt, marching his army across the Sinai Peninsula toward the Nile Delta. The Egyptian forces, led by Pharaoh Psamtik III, resisted fiercely, leveraging the natural advantages of the Nile River and fortified cities. Despite their efforts, the Persian army's superior organization, combined with innovative tactics such as coordinated assaults and the use of cavalry in open terrain, allowed Cambyses to advance steadily. The pivotal moment came at the Battle of Pelusium, where Cambyses' forces decisively defeated the Egyptian army. According to historical accounts, Cambyses exploited psychological tactics as well, reportedly using animals sacred to the Egyptians in ways that undermined morale. After the battle, he captured Memphis, the Egyptian capital, and declared himself pharaoh. This conquest was remarkable because it marked the first time Egypt had fallen under foreign rule without complete destruction. Cambyses adopted the traditional symbols of Egyptian kingship, integrating Egyptian officials into his administration while placing Persian governors in key positions. Cambyses' conquest of Egypt was significant for more than territorial expansion. It opened the door to trade with the Mediterranean and African regions, increased access to Egyptian gold, grain, and other resources, and demonstrated the Persian Empire's growing ability to project power across distant lands. However, his reign was also marked by tensions. Reports of harsh treatment of local elites and religious practices suggest that, unlike Cyrus, Cambyses struggled to fully balance integration with control, leading to localized unrest that would later challenge Persian authority in the region. Although Cambyses' military successes were impressive, his reign faced internal challenges that would test the resilience of the empire. The Persian satrapies, which had functioned effectively under Cyrus, required careful oversight, and Cambyses' extended absence during the Egyptian campaign allowed some local governors and rebellious factions to assert independence. His approach to governance, often described by historians as authoritarian and unpredictable, contrasted sharply with Cyrus' more inclusive and stabilizing methods. Moreover, Cambyses' rule became clouded by stories of eccentricity and cruelty, with accounts suggesting he committed acts that alienated both Persians and subject populations. These narratives, while partly mythologized by later Greek and Egyptian sources, highlight the difficulties of maintaining a vast empire where cultural, geographic, and political diversity created constant tension. Despite these controversies, Cambyses strengthened the Persian hold on Egypt, integrating it firmly into the empire's administrative and military systems, setting the stage for future rulers like Darius I, who would refine governance and solidify imperial cohesion. Cambyses' untimely death around 522 BCE, under uncertain circumstances, left the empire vulnerable to political instability. Yet, his achievements in Egypt remained a monumental addition to the Achaemenid Empire, demonstrating both the potential and the challenges of ruling a multi-ethnic, expansive empire. The stage was now set for Darius I, whose reign would bring administrative genius, military reforms, and the full flowering of Persian power across 3 continents. Following the death of Cambyses II in 522 BCE, the Persian Empire was plunged into a period of political uncertainty. The sudden demise of Cambyses created a power vacuum, and several claimants and usurpers sought to assert control. Among these was Darius I, also known as Darius the Great, a distant cousin of the royal family and a skilled administrator and military leader. Darius's path to power was not immediate. He had to contend with multiple revolts and internal challenges, demonstrating both strategic foresight and a capacity for decisive action. Darius consolidated his claim to the throne after quelling several uprisings across the empire, including revolts in Media, Babylon, and Elam. His military campaigns during this period were marked by precision and speed, combining overwhelming force with calculated diplomacy. By 518 BCE, Darius had successfully restored central authority, securing the loyalty of the satraps and stabilizing the empire. One of his earliest acts as king was to strengthen the administrative structures left by Cyrus and Cambyses, recognizing that a well-organized bureaucracy was essential to managing an empire that now stretched from the Indus Valley in the east to the Aegean coast in the west. Beyond his military and political prowess, Darius understood the importance of legitimacy and symbolism. He commissioned monuments, inscriptions, and reliefs, most famously at Persepolis, to assert his authority and commemorate his achievements. These projects served not only as propaganda tools but also as reminders to subjects of the empire's grandeur and stability. Darius's rise marked a turning point in Persian history. While Cyrus and Cambyses had expanded the empire, it was under Darius that the Achaemenids would achieve administrative sophistication, territorial cohesion, and enduring legacy. One of Darius's most significant contributions to the Persian Empire was his systematic approach to governance. Recognizing that the empire's vast size made direct control impossible, he divided it into approximately 20 provinces called satrapies, each governed by a satrap who acted as a local ruler while remaining accountable to the central authority. The satraps were responsible for collecting taxes, maintaining security, and providing troops for military campaigns, but Darius also introduced a system of oversight through royal inspectors, often called the king's eyes and ears, to prevent corruption and abuse of power. To unify the empire economically, Darius introduced a standardized currency, known as the daric, facilitating trade across vast distances and creating economic stability. He also standardized weights, measures, and legal codes, reducing regional disparities and promoting cohesion. The construction of the Royal Road, stretching over 1,500 miles from Susa to Sardis, revolutionized communication, allowing messages to travel across the empire within days. This infrastructure not only strengthened the king's control but also promoted commerce, cultural exchange, and military coordination. Darius's administrative reforms were not limited to governance and economics. He also implemented policies to respect the customs and religions of conquered peoples. While he expected loyalty and tribute, he avoided imposing Persian culture indiscriminately, echoing the inclusive policies of Cyrus. By balancing central authority with local autonomy, Darius created a system that was remarkably resilient, enabling the Persian Empire to endure challenges both internal and external, including looming tensions with the Greek city-states to the west. Under Darius I, the Persian Empire reached its geographical and strategic apex, extending from the Indus River to the Aegean Sea and from the Caucasus to the Persian Gulf. His reign involved numerous military campaigns aimed at consolidating control and expanding Persian influence. In the east, Darius subdued rebellious territories in modern-day Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Central Asia, integrating these regions through military strength and strategic settlements. In the west, his attention turned toward the Greek city-states, whose growing influence in Ionia, modern-day western Turkey, threatened Persian interests. Darius also launched campaigns against Scythian tribes north of the Black Sea, although these were more exploratory than conquest-driven, demonstrating his interest in securing borders and projecting Persian power into new territories. The Persian army under Darius was highly organized, combining cavalry, infantry, and archers from across the empire, and employing specialized units drawn from the diverse populations under Persian rule. This diversity allowed the empire to adapt to different terrains and military challenges, from desert plains to river valleys. Despite his military focus, Darius understood that conquest alone was insufficient to maintain an empire. Every campaign was paired with administrative consolidation, ensuring that newly subjugated lands were integrated into the satrapy system, contributing taxes, and supplying troops. By combining administrative brilliance with military innovation, Darius set the stage for the famous Persian-Greek conflicts, most notably the Ionian Revolt, which would later spark the first major confrontations between Persia and the Greek city-states. His reign solidified the Persian Empire as a model of organizational efficiency, cultural tolerance, and military might, leaving a legacy that would influence subsequent empires for centuries. By the time of Darius I, the Persian Empire had become the largest political entity the world had ever seen, spanning thousands of miles from the Indus Valley to the Aegean coast. With such an extensive territory, the challenge of maintaining unity and control over distant provinces became critical. To address this, Darius embarked on an unprecedented campaign to develop infrastructure and communication networks. Unlike previous rulers, he recognized that effective administration required more than military might. It demanded efficient governance, rapid information flow, and the ability to respond quickly to unrest or rebellion. The Persian Empire was composed of diverse peoples, languages, and customs. Without proper coordination, satraps could act autonomously, regional revolts could destabilize the empire, and military campaigns could falter due to slow communication. Darius implemented solutions that were both innovative and practical. He formalized a network of roads, stations, and relay systems that allowed messages to traverse the empire with unprecedented speed. The most famous of these projects, the Royal Road, stretched over 1,500 miles from Susa in Persia to Sardis in Anatolia, connecting all major provinces. This road was not merely a path for royal envoys, it symbolized imperial authority and cohesion, demonstrating that the king's power could reach even the farthest frontiers. The Royal Road also facilitated trade, cultural exchange, and military coordination. Merchants could move goods efficiently, armies could deploy rapidly, and satraps could communicate with the central government in near real time. This system marked a turning point in ancient statecraft, showcasing how infrastructure could transform political control and economic integration. In essence, the road made the vast Persian Empire manageable, interconnected, and resilient, preparing it to face external threats such as the growing power of Greek city-states. The Royal Road was a marvel of engineering and administrative planning. Constructed with smooth gravel surfaces, it allowed horses and chariots to travel long distances without difficulty. The road was punctuated by relay stations, typically spaced every 15 to 20 miles, where couriers could change horses, rest, and continue their journey without delay. This relay system enabled messages to travel as fast as 150 miles per day, an extraordinary speed for the ancient world, which allowed Darius and his officials to react to crises, collect intelligence, and implement decisions efficiently. Along the Royal Road, Darius also encouraged the establishment of secure rest stations and guard posts, which ensured the safety of travelers, merchants, and officials. These stations stocked provisions, fresh horses, and sometimes accommodation for couriers or military units on the move. The efficiency of the system relied on both discipline and strict oversight. Royal inspectors, often called the king's eyes and ears, ensured that satraps maintained the roads, prevented abuse, and kept the network in working order. The Royal Road was also a symbol of Persian ingenuity and ambition, representing the king's ability to unite distant lands into a single, functioning empire. The infrastructure extended beyond roads to include bridges, canals, and harbor improvements, all facilitating trade and military mobility. This network of communication and logistics enabled the Persian Empire to project power over vast distances, making it one of the most advanced and centralized empires of the ancient world. By combining military organization, administrative oversight, and infrastructure, Darius ensured that the Persian Empire could function effectively, despite its vast size and diversity. The Royal Road did more than connect Persian cities, it fostered cultural exchange, economic prosperity, and political stability. Merchants traveling along the road brought goods, ideas, and artistic influences from one end of the empire to the other. Luxury items like ivory, gold, spices, and textiles traveled along the road, enriching both local economies and the central treasury. The road also facilitated diplomatic missions, allowing Persian envoys to reach far-flung territories and neighboring states, projecting power and influence diplomatically as well as militarily. Culturally, the road helped spread Persian customs, language, and administration, creating a sense of shared identity among the empire's diverse populations. Local leaders, while retaining some autonomy, became part of a larger network that recognized the king's authority. In times of rebellion or unrest, the royal road allowed rapid military deployment, often quelling uprisings before they could gain momentum. Economically, the road promoted long-distance trade, market integration, and the circulation of currency, further solidifying the empire's wealth and stability. The royal road exemplified the Persian strategy of integration through connectivity. By linking cities, provinces, and peoples, Darius ensured that the empire was not merely a collection of conquered lands but a functioning network capable of sustaining administration, commerce, and military power. This infrastructure laid the groundwork for the empire's confrontations with the Greek city-states, as it allowed the Persians to mobilize resources and troops efficiently, setting the stage for iconic battles like Marathon and Thermopylae. The road was both a practical tool and a statement of imperial vision, embodying the intelligence, foresight, and ambition of Darius I. During the reign of Darius I, the Persian Empire extended its influence westward, encroaching upon European territories that would later become the Greek world. Persia's expansion into Thrace, the Balkans, and Macedon was part of Darius's grand strategy to secure the empire's northwestern borders, gain access to vital resources, and assert dominance over trade routes connecting the Aegean and Black Seas. This expansion was not merely military but also diplomatic. Darius established vassal states and alliances with local rulers, integrating them into the Persian administrative system while respecting some of their traditional authority. The region of Thrace became strategically crucial for Persia, as it provided a bridge between Asia Minor and Europe. Through careful planning, Darius placed loyal satraps and garrisons to secure passageways and trade routes. In Macedon, which had only recently consolidated under King Amyntas I and later Alexander I, Persia employed a combination of tribute demands and political influence to ensure Macedonian loyalty. This approach reflected Darius's broader strategy: combine military strength with pragmatic administration to create a network of subordinate states that supported imperial objectives without requiring constant direct intervention. Despite these successes, the westward expansion also brought Persia into direct contact with the Greek city-states, particularly Ionia, which had become culturally and politically aligned with mainland Greece. While the Persian Empire valued stability and compliance, the Greeks' insistence on independence and their democratic tendencies created a cultural and political tension that would ultimately escalate into open rebellion. Darius recognized the threat posed by Greek disunity and the potential for conflict, but also saw opportunities to extend Persian influence through both military campaigns and the incorporation of Greek cities into the empire's tributary system. The westernmost territories of the Persian Empire, particularly Ionia on the western coast of Asia Minor, were crucial to Persian ambitions in Europe. Ionia consisted of 12 major city-states, each with strong local identities, Greek culture, and democratic traditions. Initially, the Ionian cities submitted to Persian authority, paying tribute and providing troops when requested. However, resentment against foreign domination grew, especially among aristocratic factions and local leaders who chafed under Persian-appointed governors and satrap oversight. By 499 BCE, this tension erupted into the Ionian Revolt, a major uprising fueled by both economic grievances and a desire for political independence. The revolt was sparked by discontent in Miletus, one of the wealthiest and most influential Ionian cities. Aristocratic leaders, backed by local populations, sought to throw off Persian control and reassert autonomy. The Ionian cities appealed for support from Athens and Eretria, two Greek city-states sympathetic to their cause. This external involvement transformed what could have been a regional rebellion into a conflict of international significance, drawing Persia into a confrontation with the Greek world that would have long-lasting historical consequences. Darius, determined to maintain control and demonstrate the strength of the Persian Empire, mobilized a massive expeditionary force to suppress the revolt. This campaign showcased Persia's military organization, logistical capabilities, and ability to project power over long distances. The revolt ultimately failed by 494 BCE, after the Persians recaptured key cities and punished rebel leaders. However, the Ionian revolt exposed vulnerabilities in the empire's western frontier and foreshadowed future confrontations with mainland Greek city-states, laying the groundwork for the Persian-Greek wars that would dominate the next generation of Persian military history. Persia's expansion into Europe and involvement in Greek affairs had far-reaching consequences beyond immediate military outcomes. The Ionian revolt, while suppressed, created enduring tension between Persia and the Greek world, particularly Athens, which had supported the Ionian rebels. These events highlighted the cultural clash between the Persian imperial system, which valued hierarchy, tribute, and loyalty to the king, and the Greek city-states, which prized independence, civic participation, and local governance. Moreover, contact with Greek culture introduced the Persians to new military tactics, naval strategies, and political ideas. The Ionian revolt exposed weaknesses in Persian naval preparedness, revealing that controlling distant coastal cities required not just land-based armies but a capable fleet. In response, Persia began to invest more heavily in naval resources, setting the stage for the massive maritime campaigns under Darius I and later Xerxes I during the famous battles of Marathon, Thermopylae, and Salamis. Politically, the Persian approach of combining satrapy administration with strategic military campaigns continued to evolve. Darius recognized that full assimilation of Greek city-states was unlikely without a combination of coercion and diplomacy. Tribute demands were balanced with promises of autonomy for compliant cities, while rebellious ones faced swift retribution. This dual approach allowed Persia to maintain influence in Europe without overextending militarily, even as tensions simmered for decades. Ultimately, the Persian expansion into Europe and the Ionian revolt set the stage for a prolonged and iconic conflict between the Persian Empire and the Greek city-states, a struggle that would define the legacy of Darius and his successors. By the time of Darius I, the Persian Empire had become a military powerhouse, capable of mobilizing vast armies drawn from its diverse provinces. The Persian army was highly organized, combining infantry, cavalry, archers, and specialized units from across the empire. Unlike Greek city-states, which relied primarily on citizen militias, Persia drew upon professional soldiers and conscripted troops from subject territories. This diversity provided the empire with a wide range of skills. Persians and Medes contributed cavalry, Egyptians and Babylonians supplied archers, and Indian soldiers provided expertise in elephants and exotic combat techniques. The Persian military was structured to allow rapid deployment across vast distances, coordinated under a centralized command. Darius implemented strict hierarchical organization, ensuring that each satrapy contributed a set quota of troops, equipment, and provisions. Supply lines were carefully planned along the royal road and newly constructed infrastructure, allowing the army to maintain momentum even in hostile or distant regions. Logistics were complemented by extensive intelligence gathering, including information on terrain, enemy positions, and local allies. Strategically, the Persian approach combined sheer numerical strength with mobility and coordination. Infantry provided a solid defensive backbone, while cavalry units exploited openings and flanks. Archers and skirmishers softened enemy formations before engagement, a method designed to overwhelm opponents gradually rather than rely solely on brute force. The empire's naval forces were also expanding, with fleets drawn from coastal satrapies such as Phoenicia and Egypt, which would prove critical in campaigns against the Greek city-states. This combination of military diversity, organization, and strategy allowed Persia to project power across Asia Minor and into the Aegean, setting the stage for confrontation with Greece. The Persian Empire's first direct confrontation with the Greek mainland arose from the Ionian Revolt, which Athens had supported. In retaliation, Darius I launched a campaign to punish Athens and Eretria and to extend Persian influence over Greece. Around 490 BCE, a massive Persian expeditionary force crossed the Aegean Sea, comprising both land troops and a formidable naval fleet. The Persian strategy relied on speed, surprise, and overwhelming numbers to subdue the Greek city-states before they could consolidate resistance. The Persian forces landed on the plain of Marathon, northeast of Athens, where they encountered a smaller but highly disciplined Athenian army, reinforced by a contingent from Plataea. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Greek hoplites leveraged their superior armor, heavy shields, and tight phalanx formations to counter Persian mobility and archery. The Battle of Marathon became a defining moment in the struggle between Persia and Greece. The Greeks executed a daring tactical maneuver, strengthening their wings while thinning their center, effectively enveloping the Persian flanks. The result was a stunning Greek victory, despite the overwhelming size of the Persian army. Persian losses were significant, and the retreat to their ships marked the failure of Darius's campaign to subjugate mainland Greece. While this battle did not end Persian ambitions, it demonstrated that the empire was not invincible, and it emboldened the Greek city-states to resist further incursions. Strategically, Marathon was a lesson for Persia. Success in Greece would require better coordination, larger naval forces, and a more comprehensive understanding of Greek terrain and tactics. The Battle of Marathon had profound political and cultural consequences for both Persia and Greece. For Persia, it represented a temporary setback in their western ambitions. While Darius remained committed to extending Persian influence into Greece, Marathon exposed vulnerabilities in projecting power across the Aegean and facing united Greek forces. The defeat prompted Persia to invest more heavily in both naval forces and logistical planning, lessons that would influence the massive campaigns of Darius's successor, Xerxes I. For the Greeks, the victory at Marathon became a symbol of resistance against overwhelming odds. It fostered a sense of shared identity among the city-states, emphasizing the effectiveness of citizen soldiers, disciplined tactics, and local knowledge over sheer numbers. Culturally, Marathon inspired art, literature, and historical memory, becoming a cornerstone of Greek pride and unity that would echo for centuries. Politically, the battle highlighted the importance of alliances and diplomacy. Athens' ability to rally support from Plataea, and later broader coalitions in subsequent conflicts, underscored that Persia's strategy of isolating and subjugating individual city-states could be countered through unity. The clash at Marathon was therefore not merely a military engagement but a defining moment in the cultural and political history of the ancient world, influencing both Persian strategy and Greek identity, setting the stage for the epic confrontations of the Persian wars to come. The Ionian Revolt, which had erupted in 499 BCE, was ultimately crushed by the Persian Empire under Darius I, but its effects resonated for decades. Although the revolt ended with Persian victory, it exposed the vulnerabilities of the empire's western frontier and highlighted the challenges of ruling distant Greek cities with strong local identities. The revolt was costly, not just in military terms but in political credibility. Persian governors had to rebuild trust and authority in rebellious regions, often balancing the use of force with strategic concessions to local elites. After the revolt, Darius ordered the reconstruction of cities that had been damaged and reinforced garrisons throughout Ionia. He reasserted Persian administrative control, ensuring that satraps and local tyrants loyal to Persia remained in place. Yet, the rebellion's legacy was a lingering resentment among the Ionian Greeks. Many cities retained strong cultural and economic ties to mainland Greece, and Persian authority was frequently challenged, whether openly or through subtle resistance. The revolt also demonstrated the strategic importance of naval power, as Greek support came across the Aegean, signaling to Persia that future confrontations with Greece would require both land and sea dominance. Darius's reign ended before he could fully address the challenge posed by mainland Greece. However, he set the foundations for his successor, Xerxes I, to take a more comprehensive approach. Xerxes inherited an empire that had grown enormously in size, organization, and complexity, but he faced the lingering threat of Greek defiance, which he viewed as both a political and personal affront to Persian authority. The Ionian revolt thus became a pivotal moment, shaping Persian strategic planning and laying the groundwork for the second, more ambitious invasion of Greece. Xerxes I, son of Darius, ascended the throne in 486 BCE amid both internal challenges and the looming external threat of Greece. Unlike his predecessors, Xerxes was determined to launch a campaign that would decisively bring the Greek city-states under Persian control. He inherited a well-organized administration, an extensive network of satrapies, and an infrastructure, like the royal road, that allowed rapid troop movement. Yet, Xerxes faced the dual challenge of maintaining internal stability while mobilizing one of the largest armies the ancient world had ever seen. Xerxes began by consolidating authority across the empire. Revolts in Egypt and Babylon had flared during the transition, and he had to ensure the loyalty of satraps, military commanders, and local elites. His approach combined diplomatic skill with ruthless efficiency. Those who resisted faced severe punishment, while those who aligned with his rule were rewarded with positions, wealth, and status. This consolidation was essential not just for maintaining control but for preparing for the enormous logistical task of invading Greece. Culturally and psychologically, Xerxes framed the upcoming campaign as a personal mission to avenge Persian honor. He regarded Greek interference in the Ionian revolt and their support for rebellious cities as an affront to his father's legacy and the authority of the Persian monarchy. He envisioned a campaign that would subdue Greece, expand Persian influence into Europe, and secure the empire's western borders. This vision would drive the mobilization of an unprecedented army and navy, emphasizing both scale and spectacle, characteristics that would define the Persian wars under his command. The preparations for the second invasion of Greece under Xerxes I were monumental. Persian records suggest that the army numbered in the hundreds of thousands, though historians debate exact figures. Regardless, it represented one of the largest coordinated military efforts in ancient history. Troops were drawn from every corner of the empire, reflecting the diverse composition of Persian forces, infantry, cavalry, archers, and specialized units from India, Egypt, Persia, Media, and Arabia. The navy, crucial for crossing the Aegean and controlling the sea lanes, was largely composed of ships from Phoenicia, Cyprus, and other coastal satrapies. Logistically, the invasion demanded innovations and meticulous planning. Xerxes commissioned the construction of massive bridges, causeways, and pontoon systems to cross rivers like the Hellespont, where storms had previously destroyed Persian ships. Supply lines were carefully calculated, and provisions, including food, weapons, and equipment, were stockpiled along the route. The royal road and local infrastructure allowed Persian commanders to maintain communication across vast distances, ensuring coordination between land and naval forces. Politically, Xerxes secured loyalty through both fear and incentives, binding satraps and local rulers to the campaign. Diplomacy and coercion went hand in hand. Neutral or allied city-states were promised autonomy and protection if they submitted, while rebels faced preemptive strikes to discourage defection. The combination of military scale, administrative organization, and strategic vision reflected the full maturity of the Achaemenid Empire, showcasing Persian capacity for both conquest and control. The stage was now set for the iconic confrontations with Greece, beginning with the legendary battles at Thermopylae, Artemisium, and eventually Salamis. One of the most remarkable achievements during Xerxes' I's invasion of Greece in 480 BCE was the crossing of the Hellespont, modern-day Dardanelles, a narrow but treacherous stretch of water separating Asia Minor from Europe. Previously, Persian armies had struggled to transport large forces across rivers or straits, but Xerxes approached this challenge with unprecedented engineering ingenuity and logistical planning. Historical accounts, such as those by Herodotus, describe the construction of massive pontoon bridges, anchored by ships and fortified with ropes and timber, spanning more than a kilometer of turbulent waters. The crossing was not merely a practical challenge, it was a psychological statement. Xerxes sought to demonstrate both the capability and authority of the Persian Empire. Soldiers marched across bridges built over the churning waters of the Hellespont, showcasing imperial power in an almost ceremonial display of scale and discipline. The operation required precise coordination. Engineers, laborers, sailors, and soldiers worked together to ensure that supplies, cavalry, and infantry could move across efficiently and without incident. This feat not only enabled the Persian army to reach Europe but also symbolized the empire's ambition to dominate the Greek world. Despite storms that initially damaged parts of the bridges, Xerxes personally supervised repairs and ensured continuity of the march. This persistence exemplified the king's determination and underscored the centralized command structure of the Persian Empire, in which the monarch's authority and vision drove monumental projects. The successful crossing of the Hellespont allowed the Persian army, reportedly numbering hundreds of thousands, to assemble on European soil, poised to confront the Greek city-states in what would become one of the most famous military campaigns in history. After crossing into Europe, Xerxes' army embarked on a long and carefully planned march through Thrace, Macedon, and northern Greece. This movement required meticulous attention to logistics, as feeding, supplying, and coordinating a vast army over hundreds of miles of rugged terrain was a monumental challenge. The royal road and existing infrastructure facilitated movement, but local rivers, mountains, and hostile terrain demanded constant adaptation. Persian engineers built temporary bridges and cleared paths, ensuring that cavalry, infantry, and supply trains remained coordinated. As the army advanced, Persian forces encountered both submissive regions and hostile areas. Macedonia, allied with Persia, provided troops and local guidance, while other regions offered resistance or required negotiation. Xerxes used a combination of diplomacy, intimidation, and rewards to maintain momentum and secure safe passage. Supply depots were established along the route, and communication with naval forces positioned along the coast ensured coordination between the army and fleet. The march also served a strategic purpose. It allowed Xerxes to position his forces for the anticipated Greek resistance while demonstrating the overwhelming scale of the Persian military. The sight of such an enormous army moving through Thrace and Macedonia, with engineers, cavalry, infantry, and baggage trains stretching for miles, would have been a powerful statement of imperial power, both to allies and potential adversaries. The movement of the army exemplified the Persian Empire's ability to coordinate vast multi-ethnic forces across challenging terrain, a hallmark of Achaemenid administrative and military sophistication. The march into Greece brought Xerxes' forces to the narrow pass of Thermopylae, a strategic choke point between the mountains and the sea. Thermopylae's geography made it a natural defensive position for the Greeks. Although vastly outnumbered, a relatively small force could hold off a larger army due to the constricted terrain. Recognizing this, the Greek city-states, led by King Leonidas of Sparta, mobilized a coalition to block the Persian advance. The Persian objective was clear: break through Thermopylae, secure the route to central Greece, and open the path to Athens and other major city-states. For the Greeks, Thermopylae was more than a battlefield, it was a test of strategy, courage, and unity. The Spartans, known for their discipline and military training, combined with other Greek contingents to create a defensive line capable of resisting the vast Persian army. For Xerxes, Thermopylae represented the first real challenge to the effectiveness of sheer numbers, forcing him to consider alternative strategies, such as flanking maneuvers and local intelligence, to overcome the Greek defenses. The engagement at Thermopylae would prove pivotal, influencing the course of the Persian campaign in Greece. It highlighted the tactical limitations of numerical superiority in constrained terrain and underscored the importance of reconnaissance, local knowledge, and adaptability. For Persia, the challenge of Thermopylae foreshadowed the complexity of conquering Greece, where geography, alliances, and civic determination could counter the empire's scale and organization. This strategic confrontation set the stage for one of the most legendary episodes of the Persian Wars, demonstrating both the might and the constraints of the Achaemenid military machine. The Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BCE was one of the most iconic clashes of the Persian Wars, pitting the vast Persian army under Xerxes' I against a coalition of Greek city-states led by King Leonidas of Sparta. Thermopylae, meaning hot gates, was a narrow mountain pass along the Greek coast, bounded by steep cliffs and the Malian Gulf. This geographic feature made it an ideal defensive position, allowing a significantly smaller Greek force to resist the numerically superior Persian army. Leonidas carefully selected his troops, combining approximately 300 elite Spartan warriors with additional contingents from Thessaly, Thespii, and other allied city-states, totaling around 7,000 soldiers. The Greeks understood that holding the pass would delay the Persian advance, buying critical time for Athens to prepare defenses and evacuate civilians. Their strategy relied on discipline, cohesion, and intimate knowledge of the terrain, emphasizing the use of tight phalanx formations, heavy armor, and long spears to neutralize the Persian advantage in numbers and mobility. The Greek defensive plan was meticulous. Leonidas positioned his forces to maximize the choke point, preventing the Persian cavalry and archers from outflanking or overwhelming the line. Scouts were sent to monitor Persian movements, and signals were established to coordinate resistance across the coalition forces. The Greeks also employed psychological tactics, such as demonstrations of strength and defiance, to bolster morale and deter potential Persian allies from supporting the invasion. This careful preparation reflected the Greeks' understanding of both military strategy and the symbolic importance of standing against the world's most powerful empire. Xerxes' Persian army, reportedly numbering in the hundreds of thousands, brought overwhelming diversity and scale to Thermopylae. Infantry, cavalry, archers, and specialized units from across the empire advanced along the narrow pass, testing Greek defenses with waves of attacks. Persian tactics initially relied on frontal assaults, intending to overwhelm the Greeks through sheer numbers and sustained pressure. Archers provided cover fire, while lightly armored infantry attempted to penetrate the Greek phalanx. Despite their overwhelming numbers, the Persians faced significant challenges. The narrow terrain limited their ability to maneuver, reducing the effectiveness of cavalry and massed infantry formations. Greek hoplites used tight defensive lines and spear thrusts to repel repeated waves of attacks, inflicting heavy casualties and demonstrating the lethal efficiency of disciplined close combat warfare. The Greek strategy of holding the pass created a stalemate, frustrating Persian generals and forcing Xerxes to consider alternative methods. The turning point came when a Greek trader, Ephialtes, revealed a hidden mountain path that allowed the Persians to outflank the Greek position. Xerxes sent an elite detachment along this path, threatening to encircle Leonidas and his forces. Realizing the danger, Leonidas ordered most of the Greek troops to retreat, while he and the 300 Spartans, along with a few hundred Thespians and Thebans, remained to hold the pass. This last stand exemplified both strategic sacrifice and extraordinary courage, buying invaluable time for the Greek city-states to organize defenses further south. The final stand of Leonidas and his men at Thermopylae became legendary for its heroism and self-sacrifice. Despite facing overwhelming odds, the Spartans held the line against repeated Persian attacks until they were ultimately surrounded. Their discipline, courage, and commitment to the defense of Greece left a lasting impression on both Greek and Persian observers. Xerxes, reportedly observing the battle from a throne, recognized the bravery of the defenders, but the victory came at a high cost in Persian lives and morale. Thermopylae had profound strategic and psychological consequences. Although the Persians ultimately forced the pass, the delay allowed Athens to evacuate civilians and prepare for further engagements, such as the naval battle at Artemisium and later the decisive confrontation at Salamis. For the Greeks, the battle became a symbol of unity, courage, and resistance, inspiring continued defiance against the Persian invasion. For Persia, Thermopylae highlighted the challenges of subduing well-prepared, geographically advantaged foes, showing that sheer numbers and empire-wide coordination were not always sufficient to guarantee victory. Culturally, the heroism at Thermopylae resonated across generations. Leonidas and his Spartans were immortalized in literature, art, and later historical accounts as the ultimate embodiment of civic duty, valor, and sacrifice. The battle demonstrated the limits of imperial power, even for an empire as vast and organized as the Achaemenids, and set the stage for the continued struggle between Persia and the Greek city-states that would define the course of the Persian Wars. While the Battle of Thermopylae unfolded on land, the Persian navy advanced along the coast of northern Euboea, positioning itself for control of the Aegean Sea. The Greek city-states, recognizing the strategic necessity of naval dominance, dispatched a fleet to the straits near Artemisium, where narrow channels and coastal geography could offset Persian numerical superiority. The battle was not only a confrontation of ships but also a contest of strategy, coordination, and endurance, with both sides fully aware that the outcome would influence the survival of mainland Greece. The Greek fleet, composed primarily of triremes from Athens, Corinth, and other allies, relied on speed, maneuverability, and coordinated ramming attacks. Unlike the Persian navy, which was larger but less maneuverable due to its diversity and heavier vessels, the Greek ships could navigate the narrow straits effectively, striking quickly and retreating before being overwhelmed. Commanders such as Themistocles emphasized flexibility, intelligence gathering, and exploiting local knowledge to compensate for numerical inferiority. The positioning at Artemisium also allowed the Greeks to protect the flanks of Thermopylae, ensuring that Persian naval movements could not easily reinforce their army or supply lines. Xerxes understood the dual importance of Artemisium. A decisive Persian naval victory would allow the army at Thermopylae to operate unimpeded and secure supply routes along the coast. Conversely, failure at sea would risk isolation of the land forces and weaken the overall campaign. This strategic interplay between land and sea exemplified the complexity of Persian military planning, highlighting their reliance on multi-front coordination and the logistical challenges of projecting imperial power across both terrain and water. The naval confrontation at Artemisium began with a series of skirmishes and probing attacks, testing the strength and tactics of both sides. The Persian navy, composed of Phoenician, Cypriot, and other coastal forces, attempted to use sheer numbers and firepower to overwhelm Greek formations. The Greeks, in contrast, relied on tight coordination, disciplined ramming techniques, and knowledge of currents and wind patterns to maintain defensive positions while striking at Persian ships. The battle was characterized by a series of tactical maneuvers, including flanking, feigned retreats, and concentrated attacks on isolated vessels. Despite the Greeks' smaller numbers, they inflicted significant casualties and damage on the Persian fleet. The engagement at Artemisium was prolonged, with both sides suffering losses but neither achieving a decisive victory. The Greeks eventually withdrew strategically after learning of the fall of Thermopylae, recognizing that holding the line at Artemisium without support on land was untenable. This series of naval clashes demonstrated the critical role of strategy, coordination, and local advantage in ancient naval warfare. For the Persians, Artemisium underscored the limitations of numerical superiority in constrained waters and the challenges of maintaining a cohesive command over a diverse fleet. For the Greeks, it highlighted the effectiveness of unity, innovation, and adaptability, reinforcing the importance of leadership, training, and environmental awareness in determining the outcome of battles against a much larger adversary. With the fall of Thermopylae and the Greek withdrawal from Artemisium, Xerxes' army and navy were able to advance unopposed towards central Greece, including the Athenian plain and nearby cities. The advance was both logistical and psychological. Xerxes sought to demonstrate the unstoppable force of the Persian Empire, projecting imperial authority while intimidating remaining Greek defenders. The Persians captured strategic cities, destroyed resistance points, and established supply lines to maintain momentum. The Greeks, however, executed a strategic evacuation of Athens, removing civilians and preserving military forces for future engagements. The city itself was partially abandoned and later subjected to Persian occupation and burning. This strategic retreat reflected Greek resilience and foresight, recognizing that confronting Persia on favorable terms, through fortified positions, naval engagements, and eventual counterattacks, was preferable to a direct, uncoordinated defense. Xerxes, confident in his overwhelming numbers, continued to advance deeper into Greece. The army's march showcased the administrative and logistical capabilities of the Persian Empire, including coordination of troops, supply distribution, and integration of multi-ethnic contingents. Yet, despite these advantages, the campaign also revealed vulnerabilities, such as the reliance on extended supply lines and the challenges of operating in hostile, unfamiliar terrain. The Persian advance toward Athens set the stage for the decisive naval confrontation at Salamis, where Greek ingenuity, strategy, and unity would challenge even the might of Xerxes' seemingly invincible forces. Following the Persian advance into central Greece and the partial occupation of Athens, Xerxes I aimed to consolidate his control over the Aegean Sea to ensure that his army could continue operations unimpeded. The Persian navy, composed of ships from Phoenicia, Cyprus, Ionia, and other coastal satrapies, was intended to protect supply lines, support land operations, and assert maritime dominance. Xerxes relied on sheer numbers, boasting a fleet reportedly numbering between 600 to 1,200 ships. The navy was diverse in both design and capability, with heavier ships carrying soldiers and rams, while lighter vessels provided speed, reconnaissance, and missile support. Xerxes' strategy at Salamis was to trap the Greek fleet in the narrow straits between Salamis and the mainland, forcing a decisive engagement. He expected that the Greeks' inferior numbers and unfamiliarity with naval warfare at such a scale would lead to their swift defeat. The Persian command structure, although centralized under Xerxes, faced coordination challenges due to the multi-ethnic composition of the fleet, differences in ship design, and varying levels of training and discipline among crews. Despite these issues, the Persian leadership counted on overwhelming numbers and the intimidation factor of their empire's reputation to crush Greek resistance. The Persian approach reflected a broader Achaemenid principle, combining diversity of forces with disciplined coordination to project imperial power across vast distances. Xerxes intended the Salamis engagement to be a final demonstration of Persian dominance, securing naval supremacy, enabling unrestricted land campaigns, and consolidating gains in mainland Greece. However, the narrow straits and Greek determination would soon turn these strengths into critical vulnerabilities. The Greek commanders, led by Themistocles of Athens, recognized that the narrow straits of Salamis provided a significant tactical advantage. Aware of the Persian fleet's size and lack of maneuverability in constrained waters, Themistocles devised a plan to neutralize numerical superiority with strategy, deception, and coordination. The Greek fleet, consisting of around 300 triremes from Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and other allies, was smaller but highly disciplined and well-trained in coordinated maneuvers. Themistocles used deception to lure the Persian fleet into the straits, sending a messenger or double agent to spread false information suggesting Greek disunity and the possibility of retreat. Xerxes, eager for a decisive victory, took the bait and ordered his ships into the confined channel, underestimating the Greeks' ability to exploit geography and coordination. Once engaged, Greek triremes employed tight formations, coordinated ramming, and flanking maneuvers, targeting the larger and less maneuverable Persian vessels. The battle quickly revealed the strengths and weaknesses of both sides. Greek crews, familiar with local waters, currents, and wind conditions, could strike effectively and retreat, while Persian ships struggled to maintain formation. Archers and missile troops provided covering fire, but the Persian fleet's size became a liability, leading to congestion, collisions, and vulnerability to concentrated attacks. Greek ingenuity, combined with discipline and environmental knowledge, turned the narrow waters of Salamis into a force multiplier, demonstrating the effectiveness of strategy over sheer numbers in naval warfare. The Battle of Salamis resulted in a decisive Greek victory, inflicting heavy losses on the Persian navy while preserving the core of the Greek fleet. Hundreds of Persian ships were destroyed or captured, while Greek casualties were comparatively minimal. The defeat undermined Xerxes' strategic position. Without control of the sea, his supply lines were threatened, and his army's mobility became constrained. The Persian advance into mainland Greece was effectively stalled, forcing Xerxes to retreat and abandon plans for full conquest. Strategically, Salamis highlighted the limitations of imperial overreach, even for an empire as vast and organized as the Achaemenids. The battle showcased the importance of terrain, tactical innovation, and unity, proving that local knowledge and coordination could counter overwhelming numbers. For the Greeks, Salamis became a defining moment, solidifying confidence in their ability to resist Persia and preserve independence. The victory also allowed the city-states to regroup, fortify positions, and prepare for subsequent confrontations at Plataea and Mycale, where Persian forces would face further setbacks. Culturally and politically, the triumph at Salamis became a symbol of Greek resilience and ingenuity, immortalized in literature, art, and historical memory. For Persia, it was a stark lesson in the challenges of conquering well-defended territories with determined, strategically savvy opponents. Xerxes' ambitions were checked, and the Persian Empire's European campaign entered a period of strategic retrenchment, marking a pivotal turning point in the Persian-Greek conflicts that would shape the history of both civilizations. After the decisive Greek victory at Salamis in 480 BCE, Xerxes I faced a critical strategic decision. The Persian army, though vast and formidable, was heavily reliant on secure supply lines and coordination with the navy, which had suffered catastrophic losses at Salamis. The threat to his logistics, combined with the geographical challenges of operating deep in hostile territory, forced Xerxes to retreat toward Asia Minor, taking the bulk of the army while leaving a smaller contingent under Mardonius to continue operations in Greece. Xerxes' retreat was both logistical and symbolic. The decision acknowledged the limitations of Persian imperial power when facing well-prepared, strategically united opponents in difficult terrain. His withdrawal allowed the Greeks to reclaim lost ground and demonstrated that the Persian army, despite its size and organization, was not invincible. Xerxes left behind approximately 70,000 to 100,000 troops under Mardonius to continue the campaign, reflecting both a commitment to maintaining Persian influence in Greece and a recognition that decisive victory could no longer be achieved through sheer numbers alone. The retreat marked a turning point in the campaign. Xerxes returned to Persia to secure his empire's western frontiers, reinforce his authority, and reorganize after the logistical and morale setbacks at Salamis. Meanwhile, the remaining Persian forces, now isolated and operating in hostile territory, faced increasing challenges, including supply shortages, Greek resistance, and deteriorating morale. The retreat also signaled to the Greek city-states that the Persian advance was not unstoppable, emboldening further resistance and coalition building among Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and other allied forces. In 479 BCE, the remaining Persian forces under Mardonius faced the Greek army in central Greece near Plataea, marking the culmination of the Persian land campaign. The Greek coalition, now reinforced and united by the lessons of previous engagements, adopted a defensive and strategically coordinated approach, drawing on the strengths of heavily armed hoplites and disciplined phalanx formations. The Greek army's cohesion and local knowledge provided a critical advantage over the diverse but less unified Persian forces. The Battle of Plataea was a large-scale confrontation in which the Greeks employed phalanx tactics, terrain advantage, and disciplined coordination to counter Persian cavalry and archers. Initial engagements were characterized by maneuvering and probing attacks, as both sides tested each other's strength and formations. The Greek hoplites excelled in close combat, using their shields and spears to withstand Persian charges and maintain formation under pressure. Persian forces, though numerous, struggled with coordination among troops drawn from multiple regions, each with different combat traditions and training. The turning point came when the Greek army executed a decisive offensive, breaking the Persian lines and inflicting heavy casualties on Mardonius' forces. Mardonius himself was killed in the battle, causing disarray and panic among Persian troops. The defeat at Plataea effectively ended Persian ambitions in mainland Greece, forcing the remnants of the army to retreat to Asia Minor. This battle highlighted the importance of unity, training, and morale, demonstrating that the Persian military, despite its scale, could be overcome by a well-prepared and cohesive opponent. Simultaneously, the Greek navy pursued remaining Persian forces along the coast of Asia Minor, culminating in the Battle of Mycale in 479 BCE. The Greek fleet, capitalizing on the earlier victory at Salamis, coordinated with land forces to attack the Persian positions at Mycale, a fortified coastal camp. The engagement was both naval and terrestrial, showcasing combined operations and strategic adaptability by the Greeks. At Mycale, Greek forces attacked the Persian fortifications while simultaneously engaging the remaining ships. Persian troops, demoralized by repeated defeats and isolated from reinforcements, were overwhelmed. The Greeks captured and destroyed ships, equipment, and fortifications, effectively ending Persian operational capability in the Aegean and securing freedom for the Ionian cities. The victory at Mycale not only marked the end of the Persian campaign in Greece but also demonstrated the effectiveness of combined Greek strategy, incorporating naval and land elements in a coordinated manner. The battles of Plataea and Mycale collectively underscored the limitations of imperial overreach, even for an empire as vast and organized as the Achaemenids. The Persian defeat allowed the Greek city-states to maintain independence, reclaim occupied territories, and establish a sense of unity and confidence that would define the classical Greek era. For Persia, the campaign highlighted the importance of local knowledge, morale, and tactical coordination, lessons that would inform subsequent imperial strategy while shaping the historical memory of Persian-Greek interactions for centuries. The conclusion of the Persian invasions in 479 BCE, following the victories at Plataea and Mycale, marked a turning point in Greek history. The Persian threat had unified the Greek city-states temporarily, demonstrating the power of cooperation against a common enemy. Cities such as Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and others had put aside local rivalries to mount a coordinated defense and achieve a remarkable series of victories against an empire many times their size. The immediate consequences were profound. Athens emerged as a leading military and political power due to its naval contributions and strategic leadership, particularly through figures like Themistocles, who had advocated for a strong fleet and guided key decisions during the battles of Artemisium and Salamis. Sparta retained prestige for its heroic defense at Thermopylae and later contributions at Plataea, reinforcing its reputation as the premier land-based military power. Other city-states, while smaller, gained experience in coalition warfare and recognized the value of strategic planning, intelligence, and innovation against formidable opponents. The Greek victories had symbolic significance as well. They reinforced the notion that freedom and self-determination could withstand even the mightiest imperial forces, shaping the political consciousness of the Greek world. The Persian invasions had devastated cities like Athens, but the subsequent reconstruction and fortification of these communities strengthened civic identity, encouraged the growth of democracy in Athens, and cemented the concept that unity and strategic acumen could offset numerical inferiority. Following the Persian threat, Athens assumed a leading role in coordinating the defense and security of the Greek world, giving rise to the Delian League in 478 BCE. Initially conceived as a voluntary alliance of city-states committed to protecting against further Persian incursions and liberating occupied territories, the League eventually became a vehicle for Athens to exercise economic and political influence across the Aegean. Athens contributed ships, personnel, and resources to the League, while allied city-states provided tribute. This collective security arrangement allowed Greece to maintain pressure on Persian holdings in Asia Minor, liberate Greek cities, and safeguard the Aegean trade routes. Athens' leadership in the League enabled it to consolidate naval supremacy, economic growth, and political authority, laying the groundwork for what historians often refer to as the Athenian Golden Age. At the same time, the Persian Empire continued to rule vast territories in Asia, Egypt, and the Near East, but the Greek victories weakened its prestige and influence in the Aegean. The Delian League became an enduring instrument of Greek resistance, reflecting both the legacy of Persian invasions and the strategic lessons learned by the Greek city-states. It allowed Athens to project power while maintaining a network of alliances, creating a new balance between Greek independence and imperial ambition. For Persia, the failed invasions of Greece exposed both strategic and operational limitations. While the empire remained the largest and most sophisticated in the world at the time, the challenges of logistics, coordination across diverse forces, and unfamiliar terrain demonstrated that even the Achaemenid military machine had vulnerabilities. Persian rulers continued to secure their western frontiers, rebuild forces, and maintain influence over Greek cities in Asia Minor, but they increasingly avoided large-scale invasions of mainland Greece. For Greece, the wars marked a shift from fragmented city-states to a more interconnected political landscape, where strategic alliances, naval innovation, and shared culture became critical for survival. The conflict also had profound cultural implications, inspiring literature, art, and historical writing that celebrated Greek valor, civic duty, and democratic ideals. The memory of Thermopylae, Salamis, and Plataea would shape Greek identity, emphasizing the importance of strategy, leadership, and unity in the face of overwhelming odds. Long-term, the Persian Wars established a pattern of interaction between Greece and Persia, including cycles of conflict, diplomacy, and trade. While Persia retained dominance in the Near East, Greek naval and political innovations, especially through Athens, ensured that the empire could not fully project power into the Aegean. These developments set the stage for future confrontations, cultural exchange, and the rise of classical Greek civilization, illustrating the profound and enduring consequences of the Persian-Greek conflicts for both empires. Following the Persian invasions of Greece and the subsequent retreat, the Achaemenid Empire entered a phase of internal consolidation. Xerxes I and his successors faced the dual challenge of maintaining authority across a vast empire while addressing the consequences of extended military campaigns. The Persian administrative system, which had been a key strength in organizing troops and resources, became essential in stabilizing newly pacified regions, reinforcing satrapal governance, and ensuring the loyalty of local elites. The empire was divided into satrapies, each governed by a satrap who oversaw taxation, security, and local administration. Satraps were closely monitored by royal inspectors, known as the king's eyes and ears, who reported directly to the monarch. This system allowed for efficient management of a culturally and geographically diverse empire, integrating regions from Egypt and Babylon to India and the Aegean coast. After the costly Greek campaigns, the central government emphasized rebuilding infrastructure, maintaining supply routes, and fortifying borders, especially in Western Asia Minor, which had been destabilized during the Persian Wars. Reforms also targeted the military organization, improving readiness and discipline while reducing reliance on conscripted forces from distant provinces for extended campaigns. The Persian army retained its diversity, with infantry, cavalry, archers, and specialized units, but greater attention was paid to training, logistics, and strategic deployment, ensuring that future expeditions could be conducted more efficiently. These administrative and military adjustments underscored the empire's resilience, demonstrating the capacity of the Achaemenids to recover from setbacks and maintain imperial cohesion despite significant losses in Greece. Beyond administration and military reform, Persia focused on cultural development and the promotion of imperial ideology. The Achaemenid Empire was remarkable for its ability to integrate diverse peoples, religions, and traditions under a shared framework of governance. Palaces, administrative centers, and ceremonial complexes were constructed or renovated, including sites such as Persepolis and Susa, which served as both political capitals and symbols of imperial authority. Art and architecture reflected the empire's cosmopolitan nature. Reliefs and inscriptions depicted subject peoples in their native dress, performing tribute rituals, and participating in court ceremonies. These representations reinforced the Achaemenid ideology of kingship, portraying the monarch as a just and omnipotent ruler who maintained order across a vast and diverse empire. The use of the Aramaic language as a common administrative medium facilitated communication, while local customs and religious practices were largely respected, creating a sense of inclusion and stability. Persian culture also absorbed elements from conquered regions, resulting in a dynamic synthesis that influenced architecture, art, and administration. The Persian approach to empire building was not purely coercive, it relied on legitimacy, diplomacy, and cultural patronage to bind subjects to the state. This focus on culture and ideology ensured long-term cohesion, strengthened loyalty among elites, and projected the empire's image both internally and externally, demonstrating that Persian power was as much about governance and culture as it was about military might. In addition to internal consolidation and cultural development, the Persian Empire strengthened its diplomatic and economic networks following the Greek campaigns. Relations with neighboring states, including smaller kingdoms in Anatolia, Egypt, and the Near East, were carefully managed through treaties, marriages, and political alliances. Persia continued to use tribute, gift exchange, and ceremonial recognition as tools of diplomacy, reinforcing imperial prestige and maintaining stability without resorting to constant warfare. Trade was also a central element of Persian strategy. The empire controlled key routes connecting the Aegean, Mesopotamia, Persia, and India. Roads such as the Royal Road facilitated rapid movement of goods, people, and information, enabling economic integration across diverse regions. Trade networks supported urban centers, encouraged cultural exchange, and financed both public works and military campaigns. Markets in cities like Sardis, Persepolis, and Babylon flourished, promoting the circulation of luxury goods, agricultural produce, and raw materials. Internationally, Persia maintained a cautious approach toward Greece, recognizing that future conflicts were possible but that open confrontation could be avoided through diplomacy, strategic alliances, and influence over coastal cities. This period of consolidation strengthened Persia's foundations, allowing it to maintain one of the most extensive and sophisticated empires in history. By balancing military capability, administrative efficiency, cultural integration, and economic networks, the Achaemenids created a model of imperial durability that influenced both the Mediterranean and Near Eastern worlds for centuries. The Persian Wars left a lasting legacy on both the Greek world and the Achaemenid Empire, reshaping political, cultural, and military dynamics across the Mediterranean and Near East. For Greece, the victories against Persia fostered a sense of shared identity, even amid persistent city-state rivalries. These conflicts demonstrated that cooperation among independent polities could overcome overwhelming odds, an idea that would later influence alliances, military strategies, and diplomatic norms throughout the classical period. Athens, in particular, capitalized on its role in the wars to establish dominance in the Aegean, laying the foundation for the Delian League, which served both as a protective alliance against Persia and as a mechanism for Athens to extend influence. The Delian League also marked the beginning of Athens' transformation into a maritime empire, shaping political and cultural developments that would define the Golden Age of Athens. Other city-states, including Sparta, Corinth, and Thebes, also derived prestige from their contributions, reinforcing their regional leadership positions. For Persia, the wars had exposed both strengths and vulnerabilities. While the empire had demonstrated extraordinary organizational capacity, logistical skill, and military diversity, the setbacks in Greece revealed that geography, local resistance, and strategic unity could challenge even the mightiest of imperial forces. The Persian leadership recognized the importance of diplomatic engagement, fortification of western territories, and the management of subject populations, particularly in Asia Minor, where Greek influence and loyalty could shift quickly. This interplay between Persia and Greece set the stage for centuries of intermittent conflict, trade, and cultural exchange, influencing the development of Mediterranean civilizations in profound ways. Following the Persian retreat from mainland Greece, unrest persisted in Asia Minor, particularly in the Ionian cities that had previously rebelled during the Ionian Revolt, 499 to 494 BCE. These regions, comprising cities such as Miletus, Ephesus, and Smyrna, maintained strong cultural and economic ties with Greece, creating a persistent risk of rebellion against Persian authority. While Persia retained control through local tyrants and satrapal oversight, the empire faced ongoing challenges in maintaining stability across diverse populations with strong local identities. Persian governance in Asia Minor relied on a combination of administrative oversight, military presence, and strategic diplomacy. Satraps were tasked with monitoring rebellious tendencies, collecting tribute, and ensuring loyalty among local elites. In some cases, the empire employed severe measures to suppress uprisings, including punitive campaigns, restructuring of city governments, and resettlement of populations. Simultaneously, Persia attempted to integrate these cities into broader imperial structures, promoting trade, infrastructure development, and cultural inclusion to reinforce loyalty. Despite these efforts, revolts periodically flared, often triggered by external support from Greek city-states, economic pressures, or dissatisfaction with local rulers. These disturbances highlighted the complexity of governing a multi-ethnic empire, where military might alone could not guarantee loyalty. Persian responses combined force, diplomacy, and cultural assimilation, demonstrating the adaptive strategies that allowed the Achaemenid Empire to maintain its vast holdings for centuries. The recurring tensions in Asia Minor served as a reminder that the Persian-Greek interaction extended far beyond the battlefield, shaping the political and social dynamics of the region for generations. The Persian-Greek interactions left profound cultural and military legacies that influenced both civilizations. Militarily, the Greek city-states learned the importance of unity, tactical flexibility, and combined arms operations, particularly in coordinating land and naval forces. These lessons influenced later Greek conflicts, including intercity wars and confrontations with other regional powers. The Persian emphasis on diverse, multi-ethnic armies, logistical planning, and infrastructure development also informed Greek understanding of imperial military strategy, even as the Greeks sought to resist domination. Culturally, the wars inspired literature, art, and philosophy, reinforcing ideals of courage, civic duty, and resilience. Accounts of Thermopylae, Salamis, and Plataea were immortalized in historical narratives by authors such as Herodotus, shaping Greek collective memory and influencing Western conceptions of heroism and strategy. Conversely, Persian achievements in architecture, governance, and integration of diverse cultures continued to serve as models for empire building, demonstrating the balance of centralized authority and local autonomy. The ongoing interactions between Persia and the Greek world, through conflict, trade, and diplomacy, established patterns of engagement that would endure for centuries. Persia's ability to project power across vast distances, maintain multi-ethnic cohesion, and adapt to challenges reinforced its status as a dominant imperial power, while Greek experiences fostered political innovation, military evolution, and cultural development. The legacy of these interactions underscores the complex interplay of war, diplomacy, and culture, shaping the trajectory of both civilizations and leaving an indelible mark on the history of the Mediterranean world. Following the campaigns of Xerxes I and the subsequent Persian setbacks in Greece, the Achaemenid Empire entered a period of reassessment and internal consolidation under his successors. Artaxerxes I, ascending the throne in 465 BCE after the assassination of Xerxes, faced the immense challenge of maintaining imperial authority across a vast and diverse empire while dealing with the aftermath of military failures and the potential for internal dissent. Artaxerxes' reign was characterized by careful attention to both governance and military oversight. The empire remained divided into satrapies, each governed by a satrap who managed taxation, security, and local administration, but Artaxerxes strengthened central oversight through royal inspectors and reinforced communication networks along key roads, such as the Royal Road, which facilitated the rapid movement of troops and information. By emphasizing administrative efficiency and oversight, the emperor aimed to stabilize regions prone to revolt, particularly in Asia Minor and the Levant, where lingering Greek influence threatened Persian authority. Artaxerxes also recognized the importance of balancing force and diplomacy. While military campaigns remained an option for ensuring compliance, the emperor increasingly relied on political negotiation, strategic marriages, and the co-optation of local elites to maintain loyalty. Persian policy sought to integrate subject peoples through economic incentives, cultural patronage, and respect for local religious and civic traditions, fostering a sense of inclusion while reinforcing the legitimacy of the central monarchy. This approach allowed the empire to maintain cohesion and stability across its vast territories, demonstrating the Achaemenids' capacity for adaptive governance following both domestic and foreign challenges. During Artaxerxes' reign, Persian engagement with the Greek world became more strategically nuanced. While the empire had been militarily checked by the Greek victories at Salamis and Plataea, the Achaemenids continued to exert influence through diplomatic channels, alliances, and the support of factional conflicts among Greek city-states. Persia's approach shifted from large-scale invasions to calculated involvement in Greek politics, often providing resources or backing to specific city-states or factions to counterbalance rivals and extend Persian influence. This diplomacy was particularly evident during the Peloponnesian War, 431 to 404 BCE, in which Persia provided support to Sparta against Athens, later switching alliances as strategic opportunities arose. Persian resources, including funding, naval support, and logistical assistance, were leveraged to shape Greek outcomes without committing large armies to the field. The empire's involvement exemplified the Achaemenid strategy of indirect control, using wealth, diplomacy, and political influence to achieve objectives while minimizing risk and cost. Artaxerxes' approach also reflected a broader understanding of geopolitical balance. By selectively supporting different Greek factions, the Persians prevented any single city-state, particularly Athens, from dominating the region. This policy not only safeguarded Persian western frontiers but also ensured that the Greek world remained divided and manageable, demonstrating the empire's strategic sophistication in leveraging influence rather than relying solely on military might. While diplomacy with Greece occupied one part of Artaxerxes' strategy, the emperor also prioritized internal stability and cultural development within Persia. Administrative reforms continued to strengthen satrapal oversight, taxation systems were refined, and infrastructure projects, including roads, canals, and ceremonial centers, were expanded to support both governance and imperial prestige. These initiatives facilitated efficient communication, rapid troop deployment, and economic integration across diverse regions, reinforcing the empire's resilience in the face of potential internal and external challenges. Culturally, the reign of Artaxerxes continued the Achaemenid tradition of religious tolerance, artistic patronage, and symbolic representation of kingship. Palaces and administrative centers were adorned with reliefs depicting tribute from subject nations, ceremonial processions, and the monarch's role as a stabilizing force. By promoting both visual and administrative symbols of authority, Artaxerxes reinforced imperial ideology and fostered a sense of loyalty among both elites and commoners. Artaxerxes' reign demonstrates how Persia, despite the challenges posed by previous campaigns in Greece, maintained its position as a vast and cohesive empire, capable of balancing diplomacy, military readiness, and cultural integration. His policies established a foundation for subsequent Achaemenid rulers, ensuring that Persia could remain a dominant power in the Near East while managing complex relations with neighboring states, including the increasingly influential Greek city-states. Following the turbulent campaigns in Greece and the diplomatic engagements under Artaxerxes I, the Persian Empire undertook a period of military re-evaluation and strategic innovation. The Achaemenid military, once primarily focused on massed infantry formations and diverse ethnic contingents, increasingly emphasized flexibility, logistics, and combined arms coordination. Lessons learned from defeats in Greece, particularly at battles such as Salamis and Plataea, underscored the dangers of over-reliance on numerical superiority and the importance of local intelligence, terrain familiarity, and disciplined leadership. Persian military reforms included improvements in satrapal levies, training of elite units, and organization of supply lines. The empire's cavalry was given enhanced importance due to its mobility, and infantry formations were standardized to better coordinate with supporting archers and siege equipment. Persian generals also placed increased emphasis on strategic fortifications, rapid troop movements, and the use of naval forces for transport and supply, acknowledging that the Aegean and coastal regions presented unique operational challenges. These reforms reflected a sophisticated understanding of the interplay between geography, logistics, and tactical deployment, allowing Persia to maintain readiness for both internal revolts and potential campaigns in Greece or against other neighbors. In addition to tactical adjustments, Persia refined its approach to alliances and client states. Recognizing that direct conquest was costly and prone to resistance, the empire increasingly leveraged diplomacy, subsidies, and local proxies to project influence, particularly among Greek city-states and regions of Asia Minor. This shift demonstrated the empire's adaptability, combining military capacity with strategic diplomacy to maintain imperial dominance without overextending resources. Persia's engagement with Greece did not end with the conclusion of the Persian Wars or the reign of Artaxerxes I. Subsequent decades saw continued intervention, and manipulation of Greek politics, particularly during the Peloponnesian War and its aftermath. Persia adopted a policy of selective involvement, offering support to one city-state or coalition against another, thereby shaping the balance of power in the region without committing to large-scale invasions. For example, Persian funding and naval assistance were crucial to Sparta's efforts against Athens, allowing the Spartans to challenge Athenian dominance in the Aegean. Later, Persian support shifted in response to evolving political realities, demonstrating a pragmatic, realpolitik approach. By backing different factions at different times, the Persians effectively kept the Greek city-states fragmented, preventing any unified Greek resurgence that might threaten Persian interests in Asia Minor. Persian diplomacy extended beyond military aid. Envoys, tributes, and negotiated settlements were used to maintain influence, while Persian governors in Asia Minor acted as intermediaries with Greek cities. The empire's ability to project power indirectly through political and economic means allowed it to remain a key player in the Greek world for decades, preserving access to crucial trade routes, coastal cities, and strategic resources. This approach reflected a mature understanding of power projection, balancing military capability, diplomacy, and cultural influence to sustain imperial reach. The military and diplomatic initiatives of the Persian Empire after Artaxerxes I had profound long-term consequences. The empire remained one of the most extensive and cohesive states in the ancient world, capable of managing vast territories while responding to evolving challenges in the Aegean and beyond. The strategic lessons from Greek interactions, emphasizing logistics, intelligence, flexibility, and coalition management, influenced subsequent campaigns, both defensive and offensive, across the empire. The Persian approach to Greece, combining limited military intervention with diplomacy, subsidies, and political manipulation, demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of power projection in complex geopolitical environments. The empire learned to avoid the mistakes of overextension while maintaining the capacity to influence outcomes in regions beyond its borders. These strategies allowed Persia to stabilize its western frontiers, manage restive populations, and preserve access to trade and resources. Culturally and politically, continued engagement with the Greek world reinforced the exchange of ideas, artistic influence, and strategic thinking. Persian military and administrative practices became models for subsequent empires, while Greek experiences of resisting and interacting with Persia shaped the evolution of Greek military doctrine, political philosophy, and historiography. The legacy of these interactions highlights the enduring significance of the Persian Empire's adaptability, demonstrating how a vast, diverse, and complex state could navigate both military challenges and diplomatic opportunities to maintain dominance over centuries. The Achaemenid Empire, despite being often remembered primarily for its military campaigns, achieved remarkable cultural and technological accomplishments that reflected the sophistication of its administration and society. Among the most iconic achievements were the grand palaces and ceremonial complexes at Persepolis, Susa, and Ecbatana. These structures were not only symbols of royal authority but also marvels of engineering and artistic integration, blending architectural traditions from across the empire, including Elamite, Mesopotamian, and local Persian influences. The construction of Persepolis, for example, showcased the empire's ability to mobilize labor, materials, and expertise across vast distances. Massive stone terraces, intricate reliefs depicting tribute bearers from every corner of the empire, and monumental stairways illustrated both aesthetic sophistication and administrative planning. Reliefs were often organized hierarchically to emphasize the king's central role, while representing the cultural diversity of the empire through depictions of local attire, customs, and ceremonial practices. Engineering feats extended beyond architecture. The Persians developed extensive infrastructure networks, including roads, bridges, aqueducts, and irrigation systems, which facilitated trade, troop movement, and governance. The Royal Road, stretching over 1,500 miles, connected Susa in the east to Sardis in the west, allowing couriers to traverse the empire in remarkably short times. Canal systems and water management projects improved agricultural productivity and urban sanitation, demonstrating an advanced understanding of engineering principles and resource management. These achievements reinforced the Achaemenid Empire's administrative cohesion and economic vitality, contributing to its durability and influence. The Persian Empire's economic organization was equally sophisticated, reflecting both the diversity and integration of its vast territories. A standardized system of tribute collection and taxation ensured that resources flowed to the central administration while allowing local economies to function. Satraps were responsible for collecting tribute in cash, goods, or labor, which funded both military campaigns and monumental construction projects. Trade flourished under the stability provided by Persian governance. The empire controlled key land and maritime routes connecting the Aegean, Mesopotamia, Persia, and India, enabling the exchange of agricultural produce, raw materials, and luxury goods. Markets in major cities such as Sardis, Babylon, and Persepolis facilitated commerce, fostering economic interdependence across diverse regions. Persian coinage, standardized weights and measures, and regulated trade practices further enhanced economic efficiency, ensuring that merchants and administrators could operate reliably across vast distances. The economic infrastructure also supported cultural and technological innovation. Surplus resources funded schools, artisans, and specialized laborers, while trade brought new ideas, techniques, and materials into the empire. Craftsmen, architects, and engineers benefited from exposure to multiple traditions, leading to innovations in metalwork, textiles, ceramics, and military technology. This economic vitality underpinned both the empire's administrative efficiency and its capacity to project power, allowing the Achaemenids to maintain a dynamic and resilient state despite internal diversity and external pressures. The Persian Empire's achievements were not limited to tangible infrastructure. Cultural integration and ideological sophistication were central to its enduring influence. The Achaemenids managed a multi-ethnic empire through a combination of religious tolerance, respect for local traditions, and a unifying imperial ideology. Subjects were generally allowed to maintain their own languages, religions, and administrative practices, provided they recognized Persian authority and paid tribute. This policy fostered loyalty while reducing resistance, allowing the empire to manage its vast and diverse population effectively. Royal inscriptions and artistic representations reinforced the ideology of kingship, portraying the emperor as a divinely sanctioned ruler who maintained order and justice. This ideological framework provided both a moral and political rationale for imperial authority, legitimizing taxation, military campaigns, and governance structures. Cultural patronage extended to literature, art, and ceremonial practices, promoting a shared imperial identity while celebrating local diversity. The empire also acted as a conduit for cultural exchange, facilitating the spread of technologies, artistic styles, and administrative practices across the Near East and beyond. The integration of diverse traditions within Persian administration, architecture, and art exemplified the empire's ability to blend practicality with symbolism, ensuring both effective governance and the projection of soft power. This combination of cultural, technological, and economic achievements allowed the Achaemenid Empire to sustain itself for over 2 centuries, leaving a lasting legacy that influenced subsequent civilizations, including the Greeks, Romans, and later empires of the Near East. The Achaemenid Empire's most enduring contribution to world history lies in its innovative approach to administration and governance, which allowed one of the largest empires of the ancient world to function efficiently for over 2 centuries. The Persian model of dividing the empire into satrapies, each governed by a satrap accountable to the king, created a balance between central authority and local autonomy. Satraps collected tribute, oversaw justice, maintained local armies, and managed economic resources, but their power was carefully checked by inspectors known as the king's eyes and ears, who ensured loyalty and compliance with imperial policies. This decentralized system provided flexibility, enabling local rulers to administer day-to-day affairs while remaining accountable to the emperor. Such an approach minimized rebellion, integrated diverse populations, and allowed rapid mobilization of resources across vast distances. The system also facilitated efficient taxation, infrastructure maintenance, and communication networks, including the famed Royal Road, which connected the heart of the empire to distant provinces. The Achaemenid administrative innovations influenced subsequent empires. Both the Seleucid and Parthian states, which emerged after Alexander the Great's conquest, adopted variations of the satrapal system. Later empires, including Rome and Byzantium, drew inspiration from Persian organizational principles, demonstrating that the Achaemenid model had long-term impact on imperial governance, bureaucracy, and provincial management. By combining central oversight with local authority, Persia created a governance model capable of sustaining diversity and scale, a lesson that resonated throughout history. The Persian Empire's approach to culture and religion further cemented its historical legacy. Unlike many contemporaneous empires, the Achaemenids practiced religious tolerance and respect for local customs, allowing conquered peoples to maintain their traditions, languages, and governance structures. This policy not only fostered loyalty but also facilitated cultural exchange across a vast territory stretching from the Indus Valley to the Aegean Sea. Artistic and architectural styles reflected this integration. Persian palaces and ceremonial complexes, such as Persepolis, displayed motifs from Babylonian, Elamite, Egyptian, and Median traditions. Reliefs illustrated subject nations bringing tribute, emphasizing both diversity and unity under the emperor's authority. This visual rhetoric communicated the king's power while promoting a sense of inclusion among subject peoples. Persian cultural policies also encouraged the spread of technologies, administrative practices, and artistic techniques, creating a network of shared knowledge that benefited both the empire and the civilizations it influenced. Furthermore, the Achaemenid example of tolerance and cultural diplomacy influenced later empires, including the Hellenistic states under Alexander and his successors, as well as the Romans. The Persian model demonstrated that effective empire building required more than military conquest. It necessitated the integration of local populations through respect, incentives, and the promotion of a unifying ideology. The cultural and ideological framework established by the Achaemenids thus became a template for sustainable, multi-ethnic empire building in subsequent centuries. The collapse of the Achaemenid Empire following Alexander the Great's campaigns in 330 BCE did not erase its influence. On the contrary, the administrative, military, and cultural innovations of the Persians continued to shape successor states and broader imperial strategies. The Seleucid, Parthian, and Sasanian empires inherited satrapal governance, postal systems, road networks, and economic models rooted in Achaemenid practice. The concept of a divinely sanctioned ruler, symbolized through monumental architecture and ceremonial traditions, was preserved and adapted by later monarchs. Persian military strategies, including the use of multi-ethnic armies, elite cavalry units, and logistical coordination, informed subsequent military doctrine across the Near East. Likewise, Persian approaches to diplomacy, including alliances, subsidies, and indirect control of client states, provided enduring lessons in realpolitik and power projection. The Persian emphasis on infrastructure, trade, and cultural integration allowed their successors to maintain cohesion over large territories, demonstrating the timeless relevance of Achaemenid innovations. Culturally, the Persian Empire's legacy persisted through art, architecture, religion, and administrative practice. Cities rebuilt after Persian campaigns, roads facilitating commerce, and monumental palaces became enduring symbols of imperial sophistication. Moreover, the historical memory of Persian-Greek interactions, preserved in Greek and later Roman writings, continued to shape Western perceptions of empire, strategy, and leadership. Ultimately, the Achaemenid Empire's combination of military power, administrative efficiency, cultural integration, and strategic diplomacy ensured that its influence extended far beyond its fall, leaving a blueprint for governance and imperial resilience that resonated across the ancient world and into modern conceptions of statecraft. The Achaemenid Persian Empire, founded by Cyrus the Great in the mid-6th century BCE, represents one of the most remarkable achievements in ancient history. Cyrus' visionary leadership unified the Persian tribes and conquered the Median, Lydian, and Neo-Babylonian kingdoms, creating an empire stretching from the Indus Valley in the east to the Aegean coast in the west. His innovative policies, including religious tolerance and respect for local customs, allowed diverse peoples to remain loyal while integrating their resources into the growing empire. Cyrus' successors, notably Cambyses II and Darius I, expanded and organized the empire further. Darius established the satrapal system, dividing the empire into provinces with governors who managed local affairs while remaining accountable to the king. This administrative innovation allowed Persia to govern vast territories efficiently, collect tribute, and maintain security. Infrastructure projects, including the royal road and canal systems, facilitated communication, trade, and troop movements, creating a cohesive imperial network that enabled rapid responses to revolts or external threats. During this period, the Persian military evolved into a highly organized force, combining infantry, cavalry, and archers from across the empire, capable of both offensive campaigns and defensive operations. Persian expansion included campaigns in Egypt, the Near East, and against Greek city-states, culminating in conflicts with Athens and Sparta during the Persian Wars. These campaigns, including the battles of Marathon, Thermopylae, Salamis, and Plataea, demonstrated both the strength and the limitations of the empire, as geography, local resistance, and tactical ingenuity shaped outcomes on the battlefield. The Persian Empire's legacy is defined not only by military prowess but also by cultural integration, administrative sophistication, and diplomatic skill. The Achaemenids practiced religious tolerance and respect for local traditions, allowing conquered peoples to maintain languages, religious practices, and governance structures, fostering loyalty while minimizing rebellion. Artistic achievements, such as the monumental reliefs and palaces at Persepolis, Susa, and Ecbatana, reflected the empire's diversity and reinforced the authority of the monarch while celebrating subject cultures. Darius and Xerxes further developed a centralized bureaucracy, utilizing inspectors, standardized taxation, and communication networks to ensure efficiency and cohesion across the empire. Persian diplomacy complemented military strategy, as alliances, subsidies, and support for client states allowed the empire to influence distant regions without constant warfare. Persian engagement with the Greek city-states exemplified this approach, balancing indirect control, strategic manipulation, and selective military intervention to protect western frontiers while shaping regional politics. Economically, Persia thrived through trade, tribute, and agricultural productivity, supported by standardized weights, measures, and coinage. These systems enabled the empire to fund monumental construction, maintain armies, and facilitate cultural exchange. The integration of diverse peoples, combined with centralized oversight and infrastructure, allowed the Achaemenid Empire to sustain stability and prosperity for over 2 centuries, creating a template for governance, culture, and imperial ideology that influenced subsequent empires across the Near East and Mediterranean. The enduring legacy of the Persian Empire lies in its balance of military power, administrative efficiency, and cultural inclusivity. The Achaemenid model demonstrated that a vast, multi-ethnic empire could remain stable through a combination of decentralized governance, respect for local traditions, and strategic diplomacy. This approach influenced later empires, including the Seleucid, Parthian, and Sasanian states, as well as indirectly shaping the administrative models of Rome and Byzantium. Persian-Greek interactions, including the Persian Wars, left an indelible mark on both civilizations. For Greece, these encounters fostered unity, military innovation, and cultural identity, while inspiring literature, art, and historical narratives that continue to shape Western understanding of heroism, strategy, and civic duty. For Persia, the conflicts underscored the importance of logistics, intelligence, and adaptability in both military campaigns and diplomacy. The empire's lessons in governance, infrastructure, cultural integration, and diplomacy remained relevant for centuries, serving as a blueprint for effective imperial administration. In conclusion, the Achaemenid Persian Empire stands as one of history's most remarkable civilizations. Its combination of military innovation, cultural sophistication, administrative brilliance, and strategic foresight enabled it to sustain a vast and diverse territory for over 2 centuries. The Persian legacy, encompassing art, architecture, governance, and diplomacy, continues to influence historical scholarship and provides enduring lessons on how empires can achieve cohesion, resilience, and cultural integration across vast and diverse domains. The story of Persia is not merely one of conquest but also of vision, strategy, and enduring human achievement. And that wraps up our journey through the Persian Empire. Today, we've explored how Cyrus the Great laid the foundations, how Darius and Xerxes expanded and organized the empire, the epic struggles with the Greek city-states, and how the Achaemenids built roads, palaces, trade networks, and systems of governance that lasted long after their reign. The moral of the story: the Persian Empire teaches us that true power isn't just about conquest, it's about vision, unity, respect for diversity, and the ability to combine strategy, culture, and diplomacy to create a lasting legacy. If you enjoyed this epic journey, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss more deep dives into the history that shaped our world. History Teller YT is here to bring the past to life, one story at a time. See you next time for another incredible adventure through history.